And the difference is tooling. The thing is, modern JavaScript applications, they're quite young. It's been a few years that people are building them. Websites were built for years now, or maybe 10 or 20 years now of building websites. So the tooling is much, much more advanced. Today, debugging of JavaScript application is harder than debugging of the simple website. You have much better tools for testing, for debugging, for test coverage, for almost anything is better if you use Ruby, Python, Java, anything. JavaScript starting to get good tooling with Chrome Web Tools made a huge difference. Firefox now have said that this year they are dedicated to bring the web tools up to speed. This is very, very important because this is most people who think that web applications are harder or more complicated than websites is actually because of lack of tooling. It's the main thing that's stopping making the application harder. So it's very important also so if we talk about frameworks, because most people will try to build web applications with a framework. So we have a few of them out there. You have Angular by Google. You have Ember, which is community framework. You have Backbone Marionette. I'm not sure it's a good idea, but you will see later why. And actually I wanted to cite another one. I don't know if some of you maybe saw it. React.js. It was a huge troll this week, I think, or last week on Hacker News. Actually, the guy built something in 1 kilobyte, and he said like, hey, I have the most powerful framework. And it's not Wapper.js, it's actually a real framework, actually some code there. And he's saying like, okay, what a quite interesting blog post before it, explaining why he thinks he doesn't need the framework, why he doesn't need 1 kilobyte of like free functions which wrap a little bit of JavaScript. And I will try to explain why I think he's very, very wrong. So it's obvious that you need to be comfortable with your framework that you choose. Actually, some people came to me and asked me, why should I use Ember or Angular or Backbone or something else? Actually, the most important thing is you need to, if you're a developer, you need to make yourself comfortable with the tool you want to use. And if you're not a developer, you need to find a developer who will be comfortable working with one technology. If you think you will change in a year because there will be a better framework, honestly I don't think so. Changing from one framework to another is hard. There will always be a better tool in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years. The truth is you need to build something today, so you have to make a choice and you have to make yourself comfortable with the choice. This is the most important. I'm comfortable with Ember, so I work with Ember. Someone who is comfortable with Angular, he will probably do a better job with Angular if you try to force himself on using Ember. So the most important is get yourself comfortable. The second thing is, this is why I think a Backbone is not a good idea, is because I truly believe you should have more code in the framework when your app. What I mean is, I think I'm not the stupidest developer out there, but I think there is a lot of developers much more smarter than I am. And I think most of the smart people will try to, if all of these smart people try to contribute to something, this is what actually we call framework. So basically any code which is not in my app but is in the framework is tested and run by hundreds of people. It's run in a lot of other applications than mine. So if there is a bug there, if there is a performance issue, I won't be alone working on it. I mean, when I use Ember, every day I work in the morning, I look at the commits in GitHub, and I know that every morning framework is going faster. So actually I have nothing to do, I have just go to sleep, and next morning I just have to update Ember and my app is quicker by itself. So it's kind of magical. And it will never happen if it's your code, because your code you will have not to sleep but code all night, so it gets quicker on the morning. It won't be done by itself. So just an example, Capitaine Train App. So we're using Ember.js, as I said. We're using ECMAScript 6 models. We use Grunt for build deploy pipeline, and some interesting, I think, numbers. So basically, this is minified numbers. So we have some vendor code. As you see, almost 0.5 MB minified. The whole application this is the code, just the code from the that we have written. It's half of the vendors. You can see we have quite a bit of templates. This is basically all the HTML you will have on our application, and you have a look at those. Well, this is translations, so it's obviously it's just text. And the interesting thing, so we have almost 1 megabyte minified before JZip, and almost Kotlin 4 after JZip. So actually, in the end, I don't think it's that much for a modern application. Basically, I have nothing else to load. No more HTML, no more, there is CSS in plus of this. So I said web application should have URLs. So if you want to build a web application, really try to not break URLs. Today we have push history. It's very, very important. So no more hashtags. We can have real URLs. You can actually update your URL in your application. And if the user hits a reload button, it will always be on the same page. If you opening a modal dialog, if you can, open it with a new URL, different URL. So at every moment, your user is expecting to be able to reload, or if something happens to his navigator, it's reloading, it's reload on the same place where he ended his action. Don't break right-click, command-click things. This is very, very interesting because it's something that very early we made in Ember. And actually, I don't think all the frameworks handle very well this thing. Basically, if you add some JavaScript handlers on your links, there is a good chance you will break default behavior from people expect, like right-click to have a menu or command-click to open a new tab. This should work even if it's a JavaScript application. You need to handle this case. If you have a good framework, it will handle it for you. So yeah, this week Google announced that they're dropping EO9. Actually, it's a very, very good news because EO9 is actually a very decent browser. It's probably in the family of what we call modern web browsers, except for one thing. EO9 was the last modern browser not supporting push history. So it's very, very good news because after EO9, we have no reason to use hashtags, hashes in the URLs, I mean, and you can use fully real URLs to push history after EO9. So this is a very, very good news. Another thing in JavaScript web applications is authentication. So basically, cookies are a bad idea. If you can avoid them, do it. If you wasn't at .rb and you haven't seen the Konstantin Haas talk, try to see. I don't think the videos are already online, but they will be online. Really look at his talk. It's very, very interesting, and it explains much better than I could explain to you why cookies are a bad idea. But basically, the one thing to think about is the fact that there is always almost every month, every one and then we have some exploits based on cookies. For the security, it will always be a problem because cookies, we have no control on how they are sent. Basically, they are sent with any request is done by your browser, and you have no control over what's happening. So probably the best way you have now, it's definitely not a perfect solution, but it's probably better than cookies if you can use a token stored in local storage, because you will have a full control on when you send it. So it probably will be less exploit possible than with cookies. And obviously, you have to encrypt your connection, but this is not part of it. Definitely, the right solution is that we can hope that browser one day will provide better APIs for authentication. Probably need something more high level, something that you could allow some kind of authentication scope or something, but definitely not the current solution. I don't think there is some discussion around it now, but I think there will be at some point, because even OAuth or stuff like this, it's just it's not a real solution. Where we need something better. I hope it will come one day, but what you need to think now is that if you're building a web application, think of it about like you think about your iOS application. So just use tokens. Probably the best you can do now.
Okay, so one thing I said, it must, you can expect a web application to run without a server. Well, basically you need a server to load at the beginning of your application, but then if your server is down, you can expect it to try to access the server, have some errors, handle them, and if the server is get back in a few minutes, it should just resume by itself. So it shouldn't be down if for some reason you don't have a connection or something. This is actually why this is one of the reasons why you're building a web application, not just a website. So storage, data, and offline is important. You probably want to use some kind of ORM, which would handle identity map for you on the client side. If you use Amber Data is a very, very good candidate for this. It will handle for you identity map, which is very important because basically it's caching. So if you request an object at some point, you will never need to, well, you won't need to reload it on every page every time you change your contacts in your application. It actually will keep it in a storage on the client. You can use local storage. Don't abuse it because it's slow. It doesn't take. It's kind of limited in space, and it's synchronous. So it will, if you put too many data in there, it will be slow. And there is some problems with some navigators. For example, in anonymous mode, in Safari, it just won't work. It will raise an exception. So local storage is kind of problematic, but it's better than nothing. And definitely IndexedDB is the future. If you need to do some client-side caching, use IndexedDB. It works in most browsers. Where it doesn't, there is some polyfills using WebSQL, which was deprecated, but well, until it's everywhere, you can use it. Definitely use and abuse HTTP caching. And this is my next point. I really dislike embedded APIs. So what I mean by embedded APIs is basically if you use something like Mongo and you have your document which will store nested, which will have nested documents. Basically, if you just dump this thing to the client, it seems like a good idea at the beginning, but the problem is basically you're better off with more atomic approach, where you have each resource have its own URL, because this will be easier for caching and for updating a single resource. If everything is nested, everything is embedded, it will be a huge mess to update your data, or even to handle simply handling a caching where you can just expire some part of your resources. And actually, the last point about web applications, which often is quite problematic, is SEO. Well, I think in the future, crawlers need to learn JavaScript, and I believe they will. I believe actually they already know it. Actually, we're almost certain that Google already now can actually crawl pure JavaScript applications. They don't advise to just be Java. Well, they won't accept it like this now, but everyone and then we know that there is Google crawlers who enable a JavaScript with coming and looking at your application. So probably in a few years it will be common practice, and you wouldn't need to do something extra to support SEO in a JavaScript application. But for now, basically, you're left with either escaped fragment, which is a parameter you can accept on your server. So actually, there is a meta plus escaped fragment parameter, which Google crawler will try to send to your server in order to get some static content from your JavaScript application. Or you can try a no-script approach, which is probably not such a good idea. Well, it can work. I know some people are using it. For some of them it kind of works, but it's basically Google will crawl you, but it won't really index you. It will index you with very bad ratings. Well, probably not the best idea. Escape fragment is probably the best thing you can do for now. And how you get the content for escaped fragment? Well, either you have your backend to generate some static content for you. You can build a frontend.js crawler, or you can use a cloud service for this. Or this is one friend who suggested this idea. I don't know if somebody tried to do it actually, but it seems like a fun idea. Basically, he said, why not each client can actually take snapshots of HTML that it has in the browser, and from time to time try to upload it to your server. So basically, you use your clients in order to build the cache of your web application. I'm really not sure this is I don't know if it's a good idea, but it sounds like a fun idea, so I put it here. Maybe there is something to it. Yeah, so basically that's it, but I think you have questions.